Everyone wins if we can get more people physically active.
Welcome to Kuul Conversations, where I, Claire McSweeney, founder of Kuul Play, sit down with thought leaders, innovators, and change makers that are shaping children's physical activity, sport, and the future of our kids' health. And at the end, we'll see how they are positively impacting kids' activity habits and learn the valuable takeaways that can help us all, coaches, parents, teachers, and communities, unlock the potential of our kids through fun, movement, and play. Today, I sit down with Dr. Cedric Bryant, who is the President and Chief Science Officer at the American Council on Exercise. With more than 35 years of expertise in exercise science, he leads their exploration on how science-based programs and interventions appropriately integrate into healthcare and public health. He also provides his expertise as a member of the National Academy of Science, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Active People, and the World Health Organization's Global Action Plan on Physical Activity. There's no one more expert when it comes to the science of exercise, behavior change, and population health, and he's played an instrumental role in ushering in a new era of collaborative, collective action for supporting active, healthy lifestyles. Cedric, it's wonderful to have you here this morning. Thank you for joining for this conversation, and I'm really excited for it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So I was thinking that maybe we could get started with how you came to be interested in the science of exercise, being one of the nation's leading experts and change makers in this field.
Yeah, it's funny. My journey was a pretty personal one in that when I was a freshman in college, I completely severed my anterior cruciate ligament. I was a baseball player, and so I got fascinated with the body through my rehab and recovery process from that catastrophic injury, and so I just couldn't learn enough about the human body, how it functioned, and how participating in different types of activity and movement forms could produce such a powerful impact. Because when I severed my ACL, I really, my life totally changed in terms of the level of amounts of activity and movement that I could do to getting back to full functioning as it was pre-injury. And so I just wanted to learn more and more about the body, and I was a biology major to begin with, but then I had the ability to take an elective course as a junior that was an exercise physiology course, and that's when I realized, boy, this is really just fits me like a glove, and so from that point forward, that was kind of my path.
That's amazing. And it's such a personal journey. I can relate to it through my own journey in being an athlete and in
Hmm.
this space. It definitely, it's exercise movement is so powerful, and you recognize that when it's taken away from you.
Exactly. Yes. Hmm.
It's so amazing then that you've obviously gone on this journey over decades,
Hmm.
and your work today is with the American Council on Exercise. Maybe you could talk to us a bit about that and what you're doing currently.
Sure. Well, my role at the American Council on Exercise, I'm the President and Chief Science Officer. So fortunately, I would say, because I think most people say unfortunately, I get to wear a lot of hats. Uh, Probably the principal one is to make sure that um, everything that we do in terms of offering education, training, resources are all evidence-based, and that they really are based upon what the latest research and science is telling us with regard to activity, movement, and behavior change. And the reason why kind of added that last part of behavior change, one of the things that we've noticed over these decades is that while we've been amassing a great deal of evidence, if you will, supporting the powerful benefits of being physically active for virtually every physiological system in the human body, we haven't been able to get enough people taking advantage of it. And we really haven't moved the needle much in terms of participation rates. And it's our belief that the reason why we been largely successful, I think, are really two reasons, and I think they both are right in the heart of the sweet spot of the work that you do as well. In that, what we noticed is that people don't need to be convinced that physical activity is good for them. Because if I were to survey 10 people and say, do you think physical activity is something that's good and something you should be doing? I would say virtually every one of those people would probably say yes. You might have the one contrarian who might say no, but you get at least 9 or 10 who would say yes. But then if I pose the second question, how many of you are regularly participating in physical activity? I might get two hands that would be raised. And so, what's the disconnect between those 9 or 10 who know they should be doing it, that it's good for them, and only two are actually doing it on a regular basis? And we believe it's really behavior change. It's really coming alongside and supporting those individuals to make those choices in terms of lifestyle that are consistent with adding more movement into their lifestyles. And so it's our belief that if we're going to move the needle, it's going to be coming alongside and helping individuals of all ages to develop those habits and those choices that are going to promote a more physically active lifestyle. Now, the second factor is, I think, a focus on youth. In that, one of the things that we know is that if we can get to people early during those formative years and help them develop the self-efficacy and belief that movement really is a part of who they are and a part of what their lifestyle should look like, we see that transfers over into later life. And so there's this whole concept of physical literacy. Back in the States, when I was a child growing up, there was the whole reading is fundamental campaign, and it was a whole thing about trying to promote um, reading literacy. And because the whole idea is that, if you develop a love for reading, it's going to carry on through life and it's going to make you a more informed human and be able to be a better human as a result. And the same thing is true with regard to physical literacy, is that if we can help young people develop the ability, desire, and confidence to believe that movement is a part of who they are and who they should be, that's going to translate over the course of their lifespans, and we're going to be able to really start to shift that curve that we're not happy that we see. Because every time a physical activity report comes out, regardless of the age of the participants in that survey, the numbers are never really positive. It's always below standard. And if you look at the latest World Health Organization big global report that was released back in October, end of October, the numbers were abysmal, and the economic costs, the health care related costs, the just well-being and emotional costs are just tragic. And I really believe that if we can start and get people when they're young to make this a part of kind of their natural way of thinking, a natural way of defining themselves, and that it's going to, I think, be one of the more effective ways of really kind of shifting things in a positive direction. And that's why when we first met a couple of months ago and you were telling me about what you're doing at Cool Play, I was so excited because the work that you're doing, I think, is going to be profoundly impactful on us really having making a difference.
Thank you. Thank you very
Hmm.
much for those kind words. And it really is, it's very much an upstream preventative approach, which
Hmm.
maybe is, it takes a longer term, I suppose, reward on that. And it's a bit
Yes.
challenging, isn't it?
No, it is, and I think, and you're right because you use that word long term, and we're just not wired to endure the long term. Everyone wants that quick magic bullet result, and unfortunately, it doesn't exist. Particularly when you talk about such a large systemic problem, it's going to take a long haul systemic approach. And so I think that's why collaborating with folks like yourself and organizations coming together to really try to tackle this very significant systemic problem is gonna it's gonna take a all hands on deck approach.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you had a message for all the stakeholders in this broader space, maybe who might be less invested in the longer term or who can contribute in many different ways, what would that message be to them?
Well, everyone wins if we can get more people physically active. I mean, it's that simple. Because, and I think that is the thing that is starting to actually shift the thinking a bit. In that I think more and more sectors that may not have viewed themselves as really needing to be concerned with physical activity status are recognizing that if we can get more people physically active, we can help relieve some of the burden that the healthcare systems are facing. We can help the criminal justice system. We can help the military, the military system. You know, like there isn't a system in society that really couldn't derive some benefit by us having a more physically active society. And it's also and the thing about it too is it's not just the States, the UK. It is all over the globe. Everyone benefits.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Hmm.
It's a
Yes,
linchpin piece that so
exactly.
many people can buy into, and
Hmm.
a rising tide then lifts all boats for a
Exactly.
system.
Hmm.
That's amazing. Going back to you, this preventative
Hmm.
upstream, and you've really emphasized the importance of the early stages of development, so kids, and
Hmm.
how impactful we can really move the needle in that space. And I don't know what your thoughts are around this very intriguing recent study from Pongiglione. I'm butchering, I do
Yeah.
apologize to those
Uh-huh.
authors.
Yes.
Um, but they had a very interesting study showing that perhaps as young as 11 years old, the way a young person conceptualizes activity as part of their identity, which you were speaking to,
Hmm.
can really have a lasting impact on behavior. And so supporting them to see movement and activity as part of who they are and who they will be in the future looks to be, very, very important at this, what do you think about that
Oh,
study?
I think what that study does is that study, yeah, you know, I talked about in terms of how at ACE we look for evidence to support kind of
Yes.
our beliefs and directionally where we want to go. And I believe that that study, because that was published in the International Journal of Epidemiology, and that study provides that evidence for that whole concept of physical literacy, and that getting these young people early in life to believe that they have the ability to be physically active and they have the confidence to be physically active early in life is going to result in them maintaining that belief and those behaviors and habits later in life. And that's why it's so critical to have great programming and great organizations and leaders who are helping to address that segment of the population.
Yes, yes. And on the science of, the labeling that can occur
Hmm.
at that early child, hood age of I'm not sporty or I am bad at catching a ball. How much of that, is attributed to genetics, or what maybe we might broadly assume like is, well, I wasn't born like that, and versus maybe just differences in being exposed to the environments that maybe are more developmentally appropriate and that can be influenced and changed, and it's not so much fixed.
Well, I think so much. I think that it is huge because I think so much of it is in terms of early exposure to different movement forms and recognizing that there's a wide spectrum of abilities, and to label or define a child as being a yeah, as you use the term sporty person or athletic person versus, well, you're not an athlete or you're not is a gross injustice. Uh, and I think the part of it is our infatuation with, I think, some of the sports stars that we see, and everyone is in pursuit of the elite athleticism, and that's at the very far end of the scale, and it's a very small segment that have the combination of genetics, work ethic, desire to get to there. But there are so many young people who can enjoy and have a positive experience with a variety of recreational sport activity, movement activities that can not only help them in terms of their physical well-being, but what we're seeing post-pandemic is for their mental well-being, it is so vital. And that's been one of the more encouraging things that I've seen that have been the result of the pandemic, kind of a blessing in disguise from the the awful past 3 years that we've all been dealing with, is that there's been a shift in individuals' focus in terms of why they want to be physically active. I would say pre-pandemic, and there have been a few studies that have supported this, that individuals were so hyper focused on some of the more aesthetic reasons for being active in terms of losing weight, looking better, and those types of things. And now there's been a pretty dramatic shift toward what I'd say more of the kind of mental health and well-being dimensions in terms of uh, better managing stress, dealing with anxiety, feeling better about oneself in terms of uh, you know, uh, positively achieving things, and which I think is so important. I think it's very important to young people because we think about some of the impacts of the pandemic, the isolation and lack of socialization that many young people were forced to experience, and rightly so, given where we were at the height of the pandemic. But to help them to come out of that and recover that and go forward in a very positive vein, I think physical activity is going to play a very important role.
Yes, yes, truly so. And so for those that are listening, maybe they're parents or
Hmm.
caregivers or community leavers, any adult who contributes to the caretaking role of the child's well-being, um, what would be an actionable takeaway that you might share to support them in building their kids' movement and activity habits, along the vein of that wide spectrum? What might be an actionable takeaway that they
I
could?
would say there are a couple things that come to mind for me, because I think make it a family affair, and there's nothing better than positive modeling. And so, because our kids are more inclined to do what they see us do as opposed to what we say. And so, if you can model that, and I also am a big believer in kind of the small wins concept. I think what trips up a lot of people, regardless of age, is this pursuit of perfection and trying to, well, I've got to get X number of minutes of activity at X intensity. And yeah, that's the science will certainly support those things for getting an optimum effect, but you can get a very significant effect just by doing something. And so just to get up and move and have fun, whether it's dancing, whether it's playing tag, whether it's just whatever, just any type of movement where you're just having fun. Because that's the one thing that we do know with kids, is that kids aren't going to do things that they find boring and laborious. And so really focus on fun, focus on just small little wins of movement, and just progressively build on that, and really think about progress over perfection, and thinking kind of starting small and doing a little bit more, because the one thing that is crystal clear in the literature, and it's been so for decades, is that some activity is better than none, and more is better than some, but we can get to more over time.
Wow. That's such a relatable message because you're absolutely right with the guidelines being 150 minutes. It's,
Hmm.
we can, and in today's society, we can really deeply struggle with that. So
Hmm.
what I'm hearing you say is maybe that it's like investing or saving money, that every few minutes of daily movement can like go towards a health bank. Would that be
Oh, absolutely. That is a wonderful analogy. Wonderful,
okay?
wonderful analogy. And it's interesting because the Centers for Disease Control here in the States, they have an initiative called Active People, Healthy Nation. And what that initiative is to get 27 million Americans moving more than they currently do by the year 2027. And
Okay.
what they're looking to do is to get people who are currently doing nothing, about 15 million people who are doing nothing, to do something,
Okay.
to get another 10 million people who are doing something to approach the guidelines, and then getting 2 million kids to reach their guidelines. And so it's what I like about it is that it's looking at all age groups, it's looking at all levels of ability as well, and can kind of starting where you are. And so that if you're doing nothing, just get up and do something, because we know that just by doing something you can improve your blood sugar control. One of the things that the most recent guidelines of the American Diabetes Association is to disrupt sedentary behavior with as short as 2 minute little bouts of activity can help with glycemic control. And so what people don't realize is that you don't have to go for the 30-minute gut busting workout to get a health benefit. Just simple little bouts of movement can be quite powerful, particularly for a person who hasn't become close to reaching their true potential in terms of their physical activity abilities. And there's a basic kind of tenet from a physiological perspective, kind of the law of initial value. And what that suggests is that the further one is from their true genetic potential or capabilities, any small dose can produce a pretty powerful response. It's as you get closer to your true capabilities where you have to be a little bit more thoughtful and more purposeful and refine the dose or prescription of exercise to continue to get those benefits. But for that person who is, you know, low on the continuum, if we do virtually anything, then they're going to confer a pretty noticeable benefit.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. And it is one of the reasons why Cool Play has a Cool Play at home piece for parents to get
Hmm.
involved just a few minutes as an avenue, an option to be active with their kids. And you really hit on a core point is that piece, however many minutes it is
Hmm.
fun. And there's a social
Yeah.
component piece to
Oh,
that is
exactly. Hmm. And
what
I love that, Claire, because the other thing too that we've found in our work is that oftentimes it's through the parents, I mean through the kids, that you can affect the entire family. Because there isn't a parent that I know who won't do anything for the benefit of their child. And so it can be a way to really activate the entire family.
yes, yes, yes. And if I was to say to you, as a behavioral tool that you might share with a parent who may like to get involved or may like to be more active with their family, what might be one very simple behavioral tool that they could implement, as part of their lifestyle as a starting point?
I think one of the things is really uh, engaging the child so that they are invested in what it is that you're doing, and make it their time. And so have a situation where maybe it's something you do after dinner, as an example, where the child gets to pick, okay, what fun movement thing are we going to do? It's kind of your fun time, and whatever it might be. If they want to go for a bike ride, if they want to play tag in the backyard, capture the flag, if they want to, you know, dance, whatever it might be, but really try to get them involved in making the choice of what the movement, but really emphasize that it's a special fun time and they get to make the choice.
Wow, that's gold. That's really, really a tangible takeaway. Thank you for that.
Hmm.
Before we wrap up, I'd really like to hear your thoughts on what excites you about the future. We've heard about all the
Okay.
challenges and all the reports that come out. Is there anything or what might excite you about the future ahead of us in this space?
I would say what excites me is the fact that there's becoming this intersection between the fitness sector, the healthcare sector, and public health. in that all of these groups are recognizing that physical activity needs to be part of the equation in addressing population health, addressing the healthcare challenges that we have. And for the first time in my many decades of being in this space, that the groups are actually collaborating in a meaningful way. And there are three initiatives that I would say reflect that. The Active People Healthy Nation initiative that I mentioned with regard to the CDC. Another one that I'm involved with is the WHO has the Global Action Plan on physical activity, which is again a multi-sectoral approach to getting all these important stakeholders working together on a systems-based solution to our physical inactivity crisis. And then there's a group called the Physical Activity Alliance that is working to really kind of connect fitness and healthcare. And so that, um, for example, that assessing an individual's physical activity status would be part of their electronic medical records, so that it would become part of, just like you go to your physician and they check your blood pressure and your heart rate and temperature and those things, that they would ask you about your physical activity, and based upon your responses they might offer you suggestions or refer you to appropriate options to address your needs. And so there's I think, some very encouraging and exciting work that is in play. And I think the important thing about it is that it's really being done in a very collaborative fashion, because that's the only way we're going to be able to effectively tackle such a monumental task.
That's incredible, and that's really incredibly encouraging. As you say, that collaborative piece, to create the environment at a systems level that makes it
Hmm.
easier for all of us on a daily level to make
Exactly.
those choices.
Exactly.
Listen, Dr. Cedric Bryant, thank you. Thank you for sharing these best practices, the exercise, the behavioral science, and actionable takeaways for all the Cool Play community. I feel like you've taken us on a journey of understanding that movement matters and can be part of all our lives, especially our young people's lives. Um,
Absolutely.
you really have this unique ability to talk through the science of physical activity and behavior change, but at the same time explain it in an accessible, simplified language for all of us. So really, thank you for making it so approachable and sharing enormous wisdom. It's been a real pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much, Claire, and please keep up your wonderful work with Coldplay, because it's so needed.